what Bernie Sanders is saying now. He's like, hey, look, she's got to say what she's got to say to win an election, but I know where she stands on things. If they're saying the quiet part out loud.
Let's go over. I have some of these lies, thanks to Charlie Kirk. Colin made it very clear all the way back during the 2020 election that she supports fracking and doesn't want to ban it. But in the 2020 primaries, on live TV, Harris said verbatim, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
And I think that's where Trump won. If nothing else, he had that last word, like he had the last statement. And he said, if you wanted to do these things, go down to Capitol Hill right now and do it.
What's up? Welcome to the Rising Podcast. I'm Trey Valdez, and this is John Boldt. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Trey, thanks for having me.
John, we've just met recently, but I've super enjoyed getting to know him. He's done a ton of cool stuff, done some hit pieces on the NSA, worked in corporate media, was on Glen Beck's staff, and now he's doing some super awesome stuff just in politics in general. And today we just want to give our overall, feedback or review of how the debate went. So, yeah, anything I messed up there?
No, I mean, made me sound a little better.
No, no way. Just to really kick things off, I feel like our current administration was just straight gaslighting us. I feel like from being kind of in the know, I feel like we were being gaslit from the beginning. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe I won't show this to my mom, but I'll tell you what I told my wife right after the debate. I said, finally, something my mom gave me has prepared me for all the gaslighting.
Oh my gosh.
Just grew up with the gaslighting, so I just spotted a mile away now. But.
Well, it was just so bad. First off, I think Kamala did an incredible job. I've been saying this for a while that I don't think she's dumb, or I don't think she's a bad politician. She got to where she's at for a reason. She's apparently been able to work her way up through the Democrat Party because she's good at doing something. And I think that something is being the chameleon that she needs to be in front of whoever she needs to be in front of. And I think she did an incredible job at presenting whatever point she was trying to communicate very effectively to the heartstrings of those voters that probably are already. So if there's a line of I love Trump over here, I hate Trump. Anyone that's in the middle to maybe I don't mind Trump would listen to her, and I'd be I guess she makes sense. Yeah, Trump is mean. And then I think Trump was better with the facts than normal, but unfortunately was pretty far himself. And I don't know, rambled a little too much.
Yeah. I think one thing that's been interesting to watch is I don't want to sound all conspiracy theories, but
where's my tinfoil hat?
All the coded kind of things that come across. I don't know if you saw, she did a thing at a spice shop, a bakery spice shop kind of thing. And just normal, right? You stop at a ice cream parlor, diner, whatever, they do on the campaign. And so it's just kind of this normal, everyday type of thing. But if you look into it, the bakery's owned by a communist, and they're very openly communist. And so she's finding ways to convey what, like she said, with how her values and things haven't ever changed. She is who she is. Maybe some policies changed, but her values are the same. That's what she's trying to say is, me, I'm hardcore climate change activist. I'm hardcore on defund the police. But yeah, I have to change some things to win an election. I have to say some things I don't really mean. But for those of you who are worried about it, I'm here. I'm with you still. And same as showing up at a communist bake shop. It's crazy how she can sound totally normal and connect with the crazies on the left. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's what's so concerning is the average everyday voter isn't going to pick up on that stuff.
No.
They're not going to know. When she's me and Tim Waltz are both gun owners. But you can clearly, she said, I think it was even 2023, 2022, that one of the first things she wanted to do was to take away gun ownership, especially high-powered rifles like ARs or high magazine thing. So it's like, that was one of the first things she said she wanted to do. And what was that quote? Someone said, you just have to watch someone long enough and they'll tell you who they are. And when they tell you who they are, you better listen. Something along those lines.
She's basically saying, you know me, right?
Which is like, you know who I am. I'm telling you who I am. I've said it for years and years and years. There's a reason I dropped out of the presidential race first because no one liked me because I was too extreme, more extreme than Bernie Sanders.
Yep.
There's a reason no one would have voted for me to be the Democrat nominee. I had to be inserted. I don't know what the right way is.
Without any votes, coronation.
In the most undemocratic way possible.
Yeah.
And people, I think, are just so quick to jump on the hype train. And that's what's been the most wild to me. It's like people are just willing to ignore facts. And like watching the debate, I was like, facts just seem to not matter anymore.
No.
And they're just like thrown out the window. And it just felt like, I wouldn't want to say as bad as 3-on-1 because the one woman moderator, I don't think she really did much other than cut people off on time.
2.5 on one.
Yeah. But David Muir,
Oh, that was horrible.
he just kept trying to pin Trump not on facts, but on things that made him sound radical.
Yeah. And one thing I thought was interesting, I don't know if you saw that part of where Muir said to Trump about abortion, that it was just kind of a fact check at the end where he's like, there's no states that allow murdering babies after birth.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm looking for this fact. You keep going. Keep saying what you're saying.
And there's one state that allows for babies to be left to die. Like after if like a failed abortion, they're allowed to just be left there. Can you guess which state?
I looked it up, so I know what it is.
Minnesota. The VP.
And who signed it?
Waltz.
Waltz signed it himself.
Yep.
Literally that's what's wild. So
It's like they expect us not to Google.
well, and like people aren't going to like look it up. Here it is. So it's like Kamala said that nowhere in America is abortion happening up until birth. But at this very moment, abortion is legal through all 9 months of pregnancy in New Mexico, Minnesota, Oregon, Colorado, Vermont, New Jersey, Alaska, and Washington, D.C. Tim Walz signed a bill removing any requirement to provide life-saving care to children born in a botched abortion.
Yep.
And there's a link to like right here too. We can send it. So like they really, it's just wild. Well, the thing that makes it even worse is when the moderators try to pin him in a supposed lie when it was the other bad one was the January 6th one where he's like, Donald Trump, what would you have done differently? And he was like,
Was there anything you regret of what you did that day? Yeah.
and he was like, well, I told Nancy Pelosi to increase security, to increase local police, that we could bring in the National Guard. And he's like, I told them literally all that we could do this, and they refused to do it. And he's like, I didn't ask what they should do differently. I asked what you should do differently. But it's like, dude, he literally just told you what he did. He literally just said, this is what I did.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to do past this? She's the one in control of calling the National Guard. Like, I told her to do it, and she didn't do it.
Yeah.
Whose fault is it at that point?
And then you know what the follow-up to that was? Said, it's a simple question, Mr. President. Is there anything you regret about what you did that day? It's like they just made those petty little remarks like that all the time.
Well, and then the animals one, which that one makes me so annoyed because they were only trying to make him look really crazy and extreme. But you can go see, what was that video you saw?
Yeah, it's allegedly of some migrants that have a dog on a stick, basically roasting it over an open flame on the stove, like at a campfire.
They went and found the Taco Bell Chihuahua and literally just
Legit.
made a burrito.
No,
with
I'm
it.
not joking. I think the Taco Bell Chihuahua looked just like that.
Well, and like they try to pin him in it that it's like, oh, the city planner said.
It's a Chihuahua Chalupa.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what we need to make the logo for this episode. Is just a chalupa with a little Chihuahua in it. Can we make that happen? They just like they say the city planner said there's no evidence of it. So I'm sure he did. What city planner wants to be like, yeah, we're being overrun by Venezuelans and we have zero control. Like our police, there's nothing they can do about it. No one wants to admit to that. But we live in the day and age where there's literally video everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's just like people are going to figure it out. They're going to
And,
know.
and I mean, if we're not there now, by next election, we'll be to where AI is so good. It's, yeah, we have video now, but is it real now? You know, and we won't be able to trust our eyes or our ears.
That's the thing that is super concerning about the trend of society is it really is becoming more and more impossible to distinguish what's actually true, especially
Yeah.
when you have Kamala who's been in office for 3.5 years. If you look at any Kamala supporter, at least maybe I'm just getting overloaded with right-wing propaganda in my Instagram. That probably is.
Probably.
But you see these street interviews where they're like, so what has Kamala done while she's been in office for 3.5 years? And the overwhelming theme in these videos is like, she's the first black woman vice president. Isn't that incredible? It's like, yeah, that's great, but what has she done? And they always look at the interviewer. This is like, I've seen so many of these that they're like perplexed. They're like, what do you mean? What has she done?
My favorite is when they kind of get all flustered and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, yeah, I bet you don't.
They just feel dumb. But like the fact that they think like she's reached the precipice of accomplishment just by gracing the office as a woman that's black.
It's almost like getting the Nobel Prize before you're elected president, right?
That's
take
literally
office.
it. It's like, oh, you became president. The job's done. You made it here. Congrats. End of the workday. And so that's what I think is nuts is the gaslighting that's done. It's like, you've been here. You've said what you wanted to do. You've had opportunities to put things into practice, especially at the border, and you didn't do it.
And I think that's where Trump won for sure, because if nothing else, he had that last word, like he had the last statement, and he said, if you wanted to do these things, go down to Capitol Hill right now and do it. Like, you're in office now. Why can't you do it? You know, and I think that's the most effective attack of the whole night, besides, you know, the hits on the economy and things like that, because everyone's feeling that. And I think everyone's starting to feel the gaslighting, even if they don't know it yet.
Well, and that's really the issue is like when they talk about the border bill, and it's like, we could have closed the border. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because Ted Cruz did a phenomenal job breaking down all of the holes and issues there were in that border bill. And the biggest issues were like, the biggest takeaway I have from it is that they didn't actually have to close the border. Like, it was up to the president's discretion whether or not they wanted to close the border. It sent a lot more money to Border Patrol, which we don't need more Border Patrol. The Border Patrol is great. Sent tons more money to them, but it put a cap. And I don't want to misquote this. That's why I really want to look it up. But I think it's like 5,000 people a day, where it's like in that border bill, they would still allow 5,000 people to come in unchecked every single day.
And it basically didn't reduce it at all from what the current levels. It was just codifying the levels at that set standard.
And it increased funding. So I hope we can pull this up, and we'll pull this up hopefully on the screen for this so you can see all the different points that he was making. But it just is wild how gaslighting it is to say, well, Republicans could have closed the border. And you go look at the actual bill, and it has nothing to really do with closing the border. And it's just like, you're lying to our faces, the American public, about certain things. And that's what I think is so concerning is she did such a great job at communicating her points.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think, I don't know about you, but for me, like, I just, at risk of being too misogynistic, I guess I'll just say, I don't know if you remember the argument that Rush Limbaugh had when Hillary Clinton was running. He said that her voice hits a certain octave where she sounds like a nagging ex-wife, and it just turns off all the guys, and the women just are like, oh, just back off. And so I think she hit a few, not just her tone, but like the looks on her face,
and the cringe,
the mannerisms, like look at it, like what is that? Who stands with their whatever? But I think just a lot of the, not actually what she said, but the way she said it. And it's like how they say the thing that matters most when you leave a room is how people felt about you or what you said, right? Not actually what you said so much. And so regardless of the facts or statements of what she actually said, the words that came out of her mouth, the impression I got, the vibes I got, she's all about vibes, right? It was just that she's just this cringy, naggy, just arrogant, I guess. Is that probably the good word for it? Like condescending look that just, she didn't have to say anything. You just felt, oh, she thinks she's better than me, you know?
Well, I agree, but I also, ABC set her up so amazingly.
Absolutely.
They teed her up to look presidential. They teed her up to sound, and I do think she is competent. Like I said before, I think which makes her that much more evil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is that if she were dumb and she was just a pawn in the Democrat Party, like the far left scheme, that's bad, I guess, too.
Yeah.
But I really truly believe she's a Marxist communist who knows exactly what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
She knows how to communicate points very effectively. And I almost got like, like all the women, maybe I'm just because I'm Latin, I don't know, that I feel this way, but she was like appealing to like the Jennifer Lopez lovers. Like I don't kept getting this vibe that I'm like, dude, every woman who loves Jennifer Lopez is going to be Team Kamala after this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she was so good at talking about their emotions and talking about diversity and coming together. And like Trump talks about himself, but it's not about Trump and it's not about me. It's about us. It's about us, the American people.
She definitely hit the verbiage and the language feel for the younger crowd and 30 and under, the Taylor Swift crowd.
Well, apparently it worked because, Taylor Swift endorsed her right after,
Yeah.
which hopefully... Though I can't even say hopefully people aren't listening to Taylor Swift to see who they're going to vote for president, because they for sure are.
Yeah.
That's what's so wild is they are for sure are. They're like, Taylor has experienced the world. She dated John Mayer and everybody else. She knows what truths are. She's with Travis Kelce. Clearly, we hang out with MAGA people.
Yeah.
They hang out with the Mahomes. And so they know what Republicans are like and conservatives are like. And so, Taylor, we're going Team Taylor.
Yeah. Well, and I think with Kamala, one of the things that she has, one of her best qualities is that she seems to be fairly self-aware. Like she knows where she's weak, and she's also very willing to just do what she's told for what the experts say on how to overcome that. It's like I heard she brought in a bunch of Hollywood actors to coach her on the debate stuff and how to present. And I mean, ABC built the podium different for her. So it was proportional, like it looked like Trump's, but it was smaller, so she didn't look as small. You look at the camera angles, they're looking up instead of down, so that she looked about the same height, even though she's a foot shorter. Like, it was a production.
It really was. Yeah. That's so interesting you point that out, because when I was watching it, I've been in different debate coaching sessions, and I'm like, she was nailing everything they teach in those sessions, and I was like, dang, like, yeah, she did her homework. She's practiced. But it was, like you're saying, it was such a good show that for sure, like, it doesn't surprise me at all to think that she could have had someone from Hollywood to come in. There were some of those one-liners, I wish I could remember them better, that she hit, that I was like, oh, that was good.
There were definitely a few of those.
They're just timed so well. And I mean, I'm not trying to like hype up Kamala, but it just is, I think, unfair to underestimate your opponent and whatever. Like, you have to treat it as it is, and they are masterful in everything they're doing.
Yeah,
and it does take someone who is, I don't even want to say savant. They don't have to be like that in the know, but someone who's somewhat in the know.
Well, if you think about it, it has to be impressive for someone to be this close to president and not won any votes for it. No primaries, nothing. It's like, it is impressive because she's doing something right. I mean, whether it's taking the coaching right, or like how some of the conspiracy sites are like, she's tapped into demonic energies, go Alex Jones throughout. Whatever it is, she's doing what she's told.
She went to the
doing it
grove.
well.
She went to the grove and bowed down to the owl. He went under the owl. Well, let's we've paid her dues. Let's go over. I have some of these lies, thanks to Charlie Kirk, on some stuff that he fact checks her on. The first one is the firearms. that she supports mandatory confiscation of firearms, but in 2019, she said Kamala wants a mandatory buyback of all assault weapons.
I think one thing that Trump didn't do was he said it, but I don't think people caught what he was saying, is that she's had these same views for 12, 16 years of public life. The only time she changed them was when she was made VP, and she threw it all out to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she tried to be more appealing and more I don't know, less toxic for the regular
Less extreme.
voters. Yeah, less extreme.
Because like there's a reason. I mean, maybe Bernie Sanders, they trashed Bernie Sanders in the Democrat convention in, what was it, 2019, 2020?
Yeah.
And so who knows, maybe he would have been the nominee. But there's a reason people like that don't make it as far. So she had to masquerade as something else if she did want her.
Absolutely. And that's what Bernie Sanders is saying now. He's like, hey, look, she's got to say what she's got to say to win an election, but I know where she stands on things. If they're saying the quiet part out loud, like that's quite literally the plan. That's what they're doing.
Thanks, Bernie, for showing all of our hands.
Sure.
Tell the 90-year-old your plans and he'll tell. Well, the other thing is when they did that, it's not like the heritage score, but maybe it is the heritage score of when they went and ranked all the senators from like most conservative to most liberal. And she was not like in the mix of liberals, the most.
Yep.
The absolute most liberal candidate of all candidates.
And
I mean, of senators, of all senators, like
the most effective deflection I've heard on that. But at the same time, it's like that brings a whole new set of issues. Is they say the only reason she had such a liberal ranking was because she didn't introduce any legislation, so she didn't have to make compromises or do any horse trading with other senators or whatever. And so to me, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But that means she hasn't done crap, like.
So she's either incompetent and ineffective, or she's a Marxist. You pick which one you want. I don't.
Yeah.
Both sound pretty bad to me.
Yeah, I think she's a very effective Marxist.
Same. I agree. The next lie was the babies, the abortion one. Then IVF, where she says Trump's policy is to ban IVF when Trump has directly intervened to protect IVF and campaigning to expand. That's always been, maybe you understand that. Well, yeah, I want you to say what you're going to say, but I actually have a true question on this. As I was watching it, I'm like, why is IVF being brought up so much? I had never heard anyone ever being against it ever before.
You know, my wife and I have done IVF a couple times, and I've not, up until the last couple of years, I've never heard anyone have issues with it. And I get what they're saying is you create these embryos, that's life. And then if you destroy them because you don't use them or whatever, that they don't want to do that. I get that. But I've never heard anyone say they want to restrict IVF. And even Trump last night, he said, I'm not looking to restrict IVF. I'm not. And then she goes on literally the next sentence and she says he said that, and so it just doesn't make sense to me how he could say one thing and then literally she would counteract it like almost like he hadn't said it or said anything. And it's like, wait, do you not? You just hear what he said?
Well, that's where I'm like so confused on the whole point all around.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, if you want women to be able to kill their babies, what's the impetus on creating life? It's like you want to have this issue on both creating and destroying life and have it both ways and then use it to come. It's like there's no way to win, it feels like.
There really isn't. That's what just is like, I don't know. Like every time they brought it up in the Democrat convention, they brought it up here. And I'm like, I feel like I have the most conservative friends, family, whoever. I have never heard anyone be like.
The first time I ever saw anything like in literature or anything like that was at this year's Republican convention here in Salt Lake. Mm-hmm. There was somebody handing out some pamphlets. And I'm like, there's people against IVF? Like, what's going on? Like,
that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's wild to think that they'll take an issue that isn't polarizing, try to make it polarizing, and just make stuff up about it to just make their opponent look bad. And I don't know. It just, some of the things is just wild how quick people are to lie to get their point across. But this isn't like small lying. This is like lying when you're going to be fact checked literally within minutes.
Yeah.
And it's on national TV. But how dumb are we, like the American people, to think like they think we're dumb, like we're still letting them run for
Correction, they know
office.
we're dumb.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
still we're okay with them sitting in the Oval Office literally right now as we speak. Like
To be fair, I don't know that Biden's been in there for a while.
he wakes up from his bed at 4 p.m. according to Trump.
Yeah.
So I think that's what just is the most nuts part is they look at us. It's like, you guys are just idiots. It doesn't matter. We'll say whatever you need to say.
Yeah.
You'll get in office. You'll believe us. And you'll know we're lying. No, you'll even know that we're lying and still put us in office.
Yep. Man, and that's one thing that kind of hit me really hard the other day was I'm just thinking about like same thing all that you said. They think we're stupid. They, all that. But then it hit me and it's like, they're basically a mirror that we're holding up. Like that is who we've become as a people for the most part. I don't care if you're lying to me as long as it makes me feel good. I think people are just
social media.
so overwhelmed and beaten down and stuff. They're just like, okay, whatever.
They just want to put their best face on and like whatever vibes, good vibes only.
Yeah.
And I bring this up a lot, but I think that's what really leads to like the fall of a civilization is
Apathy.
Yes. You get apathetic. You start caring about things that are only comforts.
Like I heard this one time that they say the opposite of love isn't hate because they operate on the same spectrum of emotion, but the opposite of it is apathy. And we've gotten to such an apathetic state that it's kind of scary if you think about it, because it's like they say, when you let go of the rope, it goes fast, and we've kind of let go of the rope of holding civilization together, and it's just, burning your hands trying to grab it back.
Well, like what's coming fast? That's the scary thing to think is like, what's happening so fast? Well, China's encroaching on our land. They're on somewhere between 50, 60,000 acres in Utah alone, over 380,000 acres across the United States. They're pretty much bringing in products tax-free, while our own businesses are getting taxed upwards of 10, 20, 30% just to make goods here in the United States. So
all while they're starting up secret police agencies operating independent of the Justice Department.
It's wild. Like, so the exterior forces are all coming in. We're spending $87 million a week or whatever it is to help in the Middle East, which is just money going straight to the Taliban. That's been proven.
Yep.
People are like, oh, tinfoil hats. Like, no, like this has come straight from Congress. Like, it's happening. So like, I don't know why people aren't talking about it. It's still beyond me. $87 million feels like a lot. And then we have people even in Salt Lake City. If you look at Spencer Cox's staff, there's people making $200,000, $300,000, $700,000 taxpayer money per year to do their job that are extreme leftists. And I'll include some stats on this. So you're like, this sounds wild, but there are like individuals that are extreme left making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars off of taxpayers' backs. And when I tell people we're a blue state, they're like, no, we're not. And I mean, 11th highest tax-paying state, 4th most welcoming for illegals with like amenities. We have liberal people all around.
Well, and I heard we have like the highest debt to income ratio of like tax burden on the citizens.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's basically we're a blue state pretending to be a red state,
and
who knows how long we'll keep that charade up,
Well, it's wild because you talk to these people and they get involved in these things and they hear Trump and maybe they hate Trump. There's a lot of people in Utah that don't like Trump, and I get it. I understand where they're coming from to a degree. A lot of things that people hate about Trump, I really like about Trump, but you can't be in the middle. Like sitting with Spencer Cox or those types of Republicans, that's not the middle. The middle's like people confuse like Spencer Cox and Rand Paul.
Yeah.
It's like Rand Paul's probably what you're referring to, but you're putting that same archetype on like Spencer Cox or other rhinos. And that means Republican in name only for those of you that don't know. But it just is, they're pushing way far left, expanding government. Rand Paul's like, we need to shrink government and just let us live.
Yeah. No, it's so crazy. Like I never thought, because so for most of my career, I've been focused on national news, working for Glen and other places. That's the focus, right? But the last couple of years that I've gone more the independent route and focusing on Utah stuff, it's just boggled my mind at the corruption. Like it reminds me of when I first got into sports writing. I grew up a big BYU football fan, loved BYU football, and then I start covering them, and I'm like, wait, they do some of the same kind of shady stuff other teams do, or they're doing this but saying they're not, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I still like them, I'll still go to the games, but I'm not buying all the hats and traveling to the games on the road. I'm not a fan. I guess not a fanatic anymore. I just it
You
reminds
support
me
the
of
whole
that.
team,
Yeah,
the home team.
yeah. And so it reminds me of that. Like digging into it's like, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Utahn. Holy crap! What are these Republicans in Utah doing?
Well, it just becomes disillusioning. And that's the thing that I think happens with most people when they start kind of peeling back the curtain, is they become disillusioned, or they're psychos like me and are like, well, let's try to do something about it.
Yeah.
And you can. But in order to do something about it, we literally need just everybody to know, to like care. And that might be an impossible ask, an impossible lift. But the more people that can get involved, like actually start figuring out some of these things and be like, wow, like I really don't agree with that.
Now, tell me if you've found this to be true, because I found like I thought it was this big, boulder you got to push up a hill, that it's an impossible task. But then as I've gotten more involved in doing things, it's like one project leads to another and things start rolling downhill, and you're meeting people and you're connecting, and all of a sudden you're making a difference. And you and a group of a dozen people that you interact with, you're influencing a senator, or you're influencing, this campaign or that campaign. And it blows my mind. Not how easy, but how accessible helping how much accessible helping the cause has become.
No, that's so true. Like, I'm just so new to this, and the fact that I've been able to have somewhat of an impact has been just wild. So you're definitely right. I think I'm overstating like the difficulty of it. It really isn't pushing a boulder up a hill like you're saying.
Yeah.
It really is the exact opposite way. All you have to do is start doing a tiny bit,
and then it'll start rolling downhill.
It starts going. People just aren't doing it in a coordinated effort. So I think that's one thing that has me looking big time on the bright side for Utah in general. Looking at a few more of these lies, Kamala said that Trump referred to neo-Nazis as very fine people.
I can't believe they're still pushing that.
Actually never happened. They actually haven't been able to find things. The other one that's crazy is people don't know any like jargon of like investors jargon. It's like when you call something a bloodbath, when she's like, they keep using the bloodbath thing. And it's like, no one knows the actual term. Here, let's actually Google bloodbath definition.
I mean, they bring that up and talk about it like he said, all these people that have crossed me, we're going to have a genocide and it's going to be a bloodbath. We're going to kill them all. And it's like, no, he's saying that it would be a financial bloodbath if wasn't about the car market, the auto industry.
Yeah, it says a major economic disaster is what a bloodbath is.
Like the definition is.
That's the word that says in the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Yeah. But that only matters until they change it online, the dictionary, like they've done in the past.
Well, they did on Google.
That's
I
not how
learned
it's
that in
used
college.
colloquially.
Like that's the thing is like I remember learning that when I was literally in my college classes.
Yeah.
And you had to do like what do these words mean test and learn the jargon. Like that was one of them. The one that Kamala said Trump wanted to plan a levy on 20% taxes on everyday goods is a lie, and almost exactly the opposite situation, because she said she wants to put a market cap on the cost of food.
Yeah.
Which
price controls.
Yeah. When you price control things, what does that do to the suppliers of those things? Me being food supplier, I know exactly what it does.
Yeah.
It puts you out of business.
Yep.
If there's certain things you can and can't do, and you can't control what the meat costs. You can't control what all that stuff costs.
Price controls is like straight out of Marxism.
Yeah. And who ends up owning everything?
The state.
Yes.
Yep.
And then if you go and do this 25% unrealized capital gains tax.
That one, I don't know how the whole world hasn't come to a grinding halt and just shouted her down on that one, because how are you supposed to pay taxes on stuff on money you haven't made?
Well, and just for those of you that don't know what that is, it's like an unrealized capital gains is if in 1 year your house goes up $100,000, you'd have to pay 25% of that next year in your taxes. So your house goes up $100,000, which this did happen. This happened to me in like 2021 to 2022. I would have owed $25,000 in taxes. What would I have done?
You'd either
Gone
have to
bankrupt.
get a loan to pay it or sell
Yeah.
the house.
I don't know what I
But then
could have
if you
done.
sell the house, you're not going to get anything equal.
Then you have the
value,
capital
you know?
gains tax on selling your
Yes.
house. Because then I had only lived in my house for a year and a half. So then I have actual capital gains, which they want to make, what is it, 44%?
Yeah.
So you sell your house, you made $100,000, but the government takes 44% of that. So instead of paying them $25,000 tax, you're paying $44,000 and you're walking away with 60. You're pretty much splitting 50-50
Yeah.
your hard-earned money.
It's insane.
And what does that do? So what's the consequence of that? Who ends up owning all the houses?
Well, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard,
All the companies
Yeah.
just contributing to those super PACs that keep them all
My
in
parents
power.
had a house that they were doing like a rent to own kind of thing. And then the owner sold it to, I think it was BlackRock. And it's just like during COVID, that was such a huge thing that China just came in and bought up a whole bunch of houses. BlackRock and State Street started doing it. And it just completely killed the competitive housing market. It's like, my wife and I rent a condo right now. I don't know how we're going to buy a house. Like the way, like my sister bought a house, I think it was like $180,000 like 8 years ago. And now it's worth like $400,000 or $500,000. And it's a small, like 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot house. It's nothing fancy, but it's worth $500,000 now.
How's anyone going to get that?
Yeah.
It's like, and if you look at just at the comparison of where you used to get with $80,000 in like the 80s to what the equivalent of that now,
Yeah.
you literally have to be making upwards of $200,000 to
Yeah.
afford the same comforts. And that's, I think, what is really handcuffing and Americans is this is why it's so gaslighting. What she's saying is Trump wants to do these tax increases, which in reality, they want to tax you out of your homes. They want to tax you out of your businesses. They want to tax you on all your everyday goods. So you have to get it all from them. They want to take away your guns. And then this is the worst, well, one of the worst ones, is when they say they want to censor all of the social media platforms, that there needs to be regulations, that there needs to be controls. That's like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, I don't know how that it fits in those plans, but they're just telling you, we're going to make you happy.
Well, Pursuit of Happiness originally was, what was it? It was life, liberty, and property. And so the founders knew personal ownership of things makes things much more important. And it makes it so you want to care for it. You want to be invested in it, and so it's just blows my mind.
Well, I, for one, can't see a government agency that's been profitable to the American people. I haven't seen a government ran anything that's actually been effective or efficient. I've just seen something that's wasted money time and time and time again. And you think we would learn. Like, we have Cuba just right here. We saw Cuba, what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Venezuela, what's happening in Brazil. We saw Argentina. But Argentina, they made it happen and they made changes, and now they're bouncing back.
Yeah.
So you saw a country that was literally headed down the drain. They get a different person in power. They change up everything. They realize that they're down a sinkhole, and they recorrect course. And now their economy's back up and booming.
Yeah.
Like that's the message of hope, is like, we're not too far gone. We're not even as far as
Yeah, that's the
Argentina
thing.
was.
Like, I feel like they've done such a good job at black pilling people. I'll just say, me personally, I know, like, the last, guess since COVID, it's just been like one thing after another that just is like, okay, well, can I really have hope on this, so that this will change? Or like, how's this one going to turn around? But for some reason, the last few months, I've finally had that white pill of hope. And I'm like seeing the ways that we have been making a difference and have been helping to change the culture, especially here locally in Utah. But, I feel like the black pilling, it freezes you, and you have to have hope to be able to move forward, and hope to start making changes, like however small or however big, you have to have a little hope. Because if you don't have hope, what's the point? unless you're all about scamming people, making money, running around in that kind of world. But for the average person, like, what do you do? But anything we can do, it becomes a cumulative effect. Like, it may seem like a little thing to you, but it may be 100 times more than somebody else is able to give at that moment. And somebody else might be able to give 100 times more than you do. And there may be times where, I got nothing to give, so I'm going to, bow out take a rest, whatever. Then you come back and take more of the load. Like, there's just so much that we can do. And I think, number one, I think mostly it has to do, let's see, how do I put this? I think it's our loss of citizenship, our loss of feeling that pride in being a citizen.
Nationalism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just feel like it's that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy kind of sentiment, like, no, we won't own anything and we won't feel any control. We won't feel any skin in the game if we do that. But having that little bit of hope and working on things, the little bit that you can do or whatever, I feel like it helps at the very, very least you to reframe your thinking, because if you're depressed and hopeless and anxious, you're not really any good, right? I mean, not that you don't have worth, but you can't really get much done.
You're not productive.
Yeah, you're not productive. And then you don't feel good about yourself. And so you start, doing other things that it's like a spiral, a snowball, but I think that one thing I've been impressed with what you've been doing is it seems like you just kind of know what you want to do and you're going for it. You're not waiting, you're not asking permission. You're not waiting for gatekeepers to let you through. It's, okay, I've got these skills, I know how to use them, and either I can make it happen or I can't, but I'm going to go do it. And I feel like there's a growing group of people like that in whatever it is, whether it's politics or whether it's in business or whatever arena, that people are just like, you know what? I'm sick of the government telling me no. I'm sick of everyone saying you can't do it. Just hold my beer,
For real. Well, it's like kind of wild. As you go around the United States, there's an overwhelming consensus of people that are like us. And they might not be like conservative. They might be a little bit more liberal, but everyone's nice people.
Yeah.
And I have always had really positive, really great, amazing interactions with everyone that I usually talk to about. Like I rarely in real life, maybe on TikTok, I'll get into a little back and forth for fun, but rarely in real life do I ever have a negative conversation where I'm like, I'm able to talk to someone who has a different perspective than me and listen to them and be like, well, why do you think that? And truly understand them. And we may not agree at the end of the conversation, but that's okay. But I want to fight for that. And if it's not me, that's the kind of the feeling I've had is, if it's not me, then who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And it's like, as you look at the Utah state landscape or even federally, I think there's people that are waking up, like you're saying. And it's like, if you had your name written down on the book of life, with the impact that you left on the world, what would it be? And I remember I was sitting in I think it was a sophomore year drama class, or I think it was general arts, actually. We were doing the drama section. I don't know. But we were talking about famous people who were generals and who were famous for whatever thing. And we're like, well, write down now what your act would be. Are you going to do a crazy painting or make a movie or in form of the arts? And I just remember thinking that I'm like, I don't want to be just someone who wakes up, lives a life, and then dies.
Yeah.
And it just is like, well, they were just another person. Good job. You make it back up upstairs, and they're like, hey, good work. You kept the commandments, and here you go. I want to be like, hey, you did your best. You actually went out to try to accomplish and make a change. And when you saw what was right, you were actually willing to stand up for things that people weren't. I would like to think I was part of that 30%. I would have been of our founding fathers, the 30% of the population that was willing to stand up to the redcoats. And this is the thing, is people are like, well, there should be some bells alarming us when the redcoats are coming. And it's like, we're past the redcoats. The redcoats are already here. They're living in our houses. They're eating our food. You just don't know it yet, because instead
Having
of them
their way
actually
with our women.
Yeah, they don't live in your house. They're just taxing the crap out of you. They were getting taxed less than 10%, the founding fathers. We're getting taxed upwards of 50% all combined. And it's like, we're just cool.
And we didn't
to
even
take
have an
it.
income tax till what, 1913 or something?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But that's wild.
Yeah.
So that's all of it. So here, I'll just finish up some of these lies that were told, because I think it's like important for all of you to know it. But these last few ones is Colin made it very clear all the way back during the 2020 election that she supports fracking and doesn't want to ban it. But in the 2020 primaries on live TV, Harris said verbatim, "There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Kamala described Project 2025 as the detailed and dangerous plan that Trump will implement if elected, setting aside that this contradicts Kamala's own claim just minutes before that Trump has no plan. The reality is Project 2025 was created by other people and Trump has no involvement with it. Trump's actual plan is called Agenda 47. You can actually look this up. Agenda 47, here I have the website here. It's donaldjtrump.com/Agenda 47. So you can look it all up. There's many, many more half truths, but I feel like those were most of the big blatant ones. But I hope people can see we don't have to, if you don't like Trump, that's okay. Vote for someone else. But Kamala just isn't it.
Yeah.
Like I think people should vote their conscience, and that's what I'm fighting for. Whether you agree with me or not, I think every single person in the country should have the ability to figure out who aligns mostly with them. And if you like being gaslit, then apparently you know where to go.
Yeah.
And people can vote truly who will bring them the representation that they're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And she kept saying, like, we don't want to go back. We're not going back, and we're finding a new way forward and things. And I get the sentiment of that, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of Americans who are like me who think, wait, no, I wouldn't mind going back to, say, like when I was in college, like, was it 2010, I believe 2013, 14. So only 10 years ago, where I was the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, and I was pretty much the only conservative. Like, even here in Utah County, Utah Valley, like the newspapers and the media is very liberal, always, well, at least
Traditionally.
yeah, my whole experience has been that. And so I was the only conservative. We had anarchists, we had communists, we had, everybody, atheists, people who believed in God, people who didn't. But then I would have, like, my best friends on the staff were people who were totally opposite from me. And like, we'd sit around in the newsroom and we'd just have these awesome conversations. Like, me and there's probably 3 or 4 other people that it was kind of a rotating thing, but we'd just sit there and talk, and we would talk 2-3 hours sometimes, and the staff would just start sitting around listening, and we'd have students out in the hall just kind of start coming in and listening as well. And we didn't agree on a damn thing, but we respected each other and we talked about all the issues, and we left with a hug. And, we loved each other more than we did when we started. It's like, why can't we go back to that?
That's America.
That would be progress, even though it's going back. That's how America's always been. Like,
No, I think that's the truest thing. It just is like in an MMA sparring session. You go hard at it. You might get a bloody lip, bloody nose, but at the end of the day, you leave with a lot of respect. You don't see very many UFC fights where people are jumping into the cage and hoping the fight's just like continuing on. They usually give each other a hug, and they're like, even when they have the biggest beef, and some might say it's staged, who knows? But you really do come out with a different respect for someone who's willing to lay it all out on the line.
well, you have more respect for him too, where it's like, you're going to say what you believe. I'm going to say what I believe. We'll see if there's some common ground, some things we could agree on. But if not, I respect you for having those beliefs and fighting for them.
100%. I think this is a great point to wrap it up. John, thank you so much for chatting with me. I hope all of you can just start doing your own research and we can get the power back to the people.
Absolutely. Thanks.